Mark Rogers TV on the college football game of the week. Florida State hosting Miami. And I keep hearing people say all over the place that this is once again classic Florida State Miami. The surface numbers would point to a possible classic. Florida State coming in at 7-0, Miami at 7-0. The Canes ranked 7th in the country, and Florida State number 3 in the BCS. And many people believe that this Florida State team is the best in college football. One of the reasons why Vegas certainly does not believe that wide left or wide right is going to determine this football game. The Seminoles are a 21.5-point favorite. Big reasons why all over the place, but we're going to start with the one unit that is very comparable, the offensive lines and the running attacks. Both are exceptional on the ground. Miami gets it done with, of course, sophomore sensation Duke Johnson, who's ran for 823 yards, 6.7 per carry, and 6 touchdowns. He's a game changer. They needed him last week desperately to control the ground and control the clock and get back into the football game against Wake Forest, but not rely on Stephen Morris to do so. The Duke ran for $168 against Wake Forest, including the game-winning touchdown with under a minute to play at home. All right, Duke could not finish the game against North Carolina, and the Canes had to rely on another comeback on the ground mostly. This time it was Dallas Crawford, Duke Johnson's backup. He's ran for 281, 4.5 per carry, and he's got 9 rushing touchdowns, which tells us, of course, in watching the Canes and looking at the stat sheet, that he is a game changer at the goal line and short yardage situations. But when he had to be the man against North Carolina, trailing by 10 in the fourth quarter, Dallas Crawford was the man. He stepped up in that situation. Where we would like to see Miami utilize the running backs a little bit differently, Duke Johnson displayed last season as a freshman that he can come out of the backfield and catch the football. 27 receptions in 2012, just 4 this season. Florida State's very difficult to run on. Of course, Miami has to stick to the ground game to a certain extent, but at the same time, use Duke Johnson in space as a pass threat in the flat. Maybe give him some other patterns to run in this game against the Noles. The Florida State running attack, Devonta Freeman, who's ran for 561 yards, 6.4 per carry, and 6 touchdowns. And also Carlos Williams, his stats, 349, 7.7 per carry, and 7 touchdowns. So another effective running game. Running game's just about even. Offensive line play just about even. Elsewhere, Florida State has huge edges unit per unit. Let's go to quarterback. Jameis Winston. Wow, the guy's exciting, and he's also efficient. So he's not exciting and then also making throwaway plays. He's efficient in taking care of the football. Then he pulls off the remarkable, the spectacular, completing 70% of his passes, 23 touchdowns, and 4 picks. He's thrown for 700 more yards than Stephen Morris, who's completed 60% of his passes, 10 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, 4 of those picks against North Carolina, when Morris did lead the 2 game-winning drives in the fourth quarter, but played a horrible game most of the night against the Tar Heels. Winston, 23 touchdowns, 4 picks. Morris, 10 touchdowns and 8 picks. Morris is the senior. Winston's the freshman. Doesn't add up. Winston's taking care of the football. He's making the right reads and the right decisions downfield in the passing game, completing 10% more of his passes than Stephen Morris. Morris, again, the senior, mystifying. He's got a great arm, an NFL arm, but he has got to just about eliminate the turnovers against Florida State. Of course, Rashad Green is the big guy in the Florida State passing game. He has caught 8 touchdown passes this season. It's going to be difficult for the Canes to stay with those Florida State wide receivers, especially Rashad Green. The Miami defense has given up big numbers in the passing game. 291 yards to Jeff Driscoll in that Florida ground and pound attack, 291. 297 yards to Bryn Renner in North Carolina, and Bryn Renner is very limited in the passing game, as is Tanner Price, who put up 302 yards in that almost upset with Wake Forest, almost getting past Miami last week, leading that game by 11 points at one point in the football game. So that means that junior linebacker Denzel Perriman has got to step up. He leads the Canes in tackles with 52. Also, along the defensive front, you've got Shayon Green with 7.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and also Anthony Chiquillo with 5.5 tackles for loss and 3 sacks. They have got to play out of their minds and get penetration, but at the same time stay in their lanes, because unlike Stephen Morris, who cannot run the football, yes, he's mobile. He's an athlete. He can get outside, and he's mobile in eluding pass rushers, but is not a threat on the ground. Jameis Winston has the passing numbers and the rushing numbers. He has rushed for 3 touchdowns this season. On the defensive side for Florida State, some people believe that this is the best defense in college football. I'm going to reserve that to see Florida State play somebody outside of the ACC and see how they stack up defensively. But they are one of the 5 best in college football. It starts with defensive tackle, one of the best run stuffers in college football, Tim Jernigan, who has 5 tackles for loss. So he also gets into the backfield, just doesn't tie up blockers, but makes plays in the backfield at 5 tackles for loss. Linebacker Telvin Smith, 5 tackles for loss, leads the team in tackles. And the secondary, we could go on and on about the best secondary possibly in college football, but it starts with LaMarcus Joyner, who has 3 sacks. So he doesn't just drop into coverage. He comes on the safety blitz and makes plays in the backfield against the quarterback and Terrence Brooks, who has 6 passes defensed and 2 interceptions. So we've got Florida State at home. We've got Florida State on a roll. We've got Florida State with a better quarterback, the better wide receivers, the better defense against the run and the pass. Miami's got a great running back, inconsistent senior quarterback, and a talented defense, but not a dominating defense. Plus, they're playing in Tallahassee. We just don't see it in terms of an upset or a classic game. We see Florida State running away from Miami 44-23. Now we need to hear from you on Florida State and Miami right here on Mark Rogers TV.